Okay, this is a quick video to help you all out with your second annotated works cited submission. At this point, your annotated works cited submission should look something like this one here. This student obviously went a little over the top with the amount of quotes that he chose, but that's fine. Uh, his name is here, the section numbers here, and the dates there. And then he has his hypothesis. Now, for most of you, this was the main area of weakness in your writing, and this is true of his paper as well. Jack London wrote to build a fire to entertain his audience with a suspenseful story by using lots of imagery and insights into a man's thoughts shortly before he freezes to death. Well, that doesn't connect to a critical theory at all. So in your textbook, you have these critical theories. You need to go back and look at them. And let's take psychological, for example. That seems to be a very popular one. A lot of contemporary literature is based on psychological analysis. So you can actually analyze the psychology of a character. So if I wanted to go in and write a thesis statement to make an arguable statement, not a fact statement, that's what was here, I could go in and I could say something like, to build a fire illustrates man's inability to come to terms with nature's lack of agency. And simply what I mean by that is that nature in and of itself, from a naturalist perspective, which you should have read some on naturalism, is essentially emotionless. It has there's no malice or joy in nature. An animal doesn't relish killing another animal any more than it relishes eating another animal. It is doing what it must do because of instinct. And animals, uh, even beyond that, you look at weather. Weather has no emotion behind it. It snows because it snows, because it gets cold. These things are not emotional. So one of the issues humans have is we want to project upon nature some sort of intentionality or agency, and really there's no intention, it just is. So work on revising your hypothesis statements. That's the first thing. And really use that section of the textbook on critical lenses. Now, the second thing you need to do is you need to add a database article to this. This is going to require that you have your net ID. This is going to require that you know how to access the library. So if you remember, you type in library.lsco.edu and it brings up this page. Now, down at the bottom you have how do I access database off campus, which walks through the steps. So you can click on that. Step-by-step instructions. Who'd have thought? And then you go to databases for academic subjects, and I almost always just start with Academic Search Complete because to me it's the most thorough. Gale will give you some things, but it's not great. If you forgot the rules from 1301, I always click scholarly and full text. You can take scholarly off on occasions if you're not finding anything. I try to make sure that I click periodical to make sure it's in a journal, and then the rest of this stuff I usually leave blank, but you could go in and click article if you need to. And you can play with that a bit to see if you can get more searches. Usually if you take off scholarly, you'll get some magazines and that sort of thing, which is okay. So next I would want to put in something like my search terms, naturalism, let's say Jack London. I would put in these concepts that help me narrow my research, and look what I get. Jack London's To Build a Fire, How Not to Read Naturalist Fiction. Bam. So I could open this one up, and it's part of TextShare. So I actually have to go in and do some work to get the full text here. And it's going into ProQuest, which is actually a database for dissertations. So if I want to find this in a dissertation, it found 0 results. So it's actually no longer in there for some reason. So see, sometimes you'll come across something that doesn't really work. Let's see, and you have to keep searching. That's the key here. Keep searching. So I'm not really finding a lot. So I can't use any of these articles really. The one article that looked good to use isn't usable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here. I'm going to type in Jack London, and I'm going to type in to build a fire, and I'm going to do a different search. See what I come up with, and I'm back to this article, which looks like it appears in philosophy and literature. Let's see if we can find it just by clicking this. See if it does something other than it's not coming up there. So I'm going to go into, let's try to build a fire, just to build a fire. Let's see what this does, and we're going to switch the order, see if we come up with anything else. All right, let's try Jack London. See what we come up with. And this will get us a lot of different things. So we can start looking at him as a person, and maybe that will change the way we think about things, change the way we read the story. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific article. Like this here, Through the Lens of Jack London, is an article about how he saw the earthquakes, and that might inform how we read To Build a Fire. It might change the way we read it. If that doesn't work for you, of course, you can go back and you can see some other articles. Like this one. And this is HTML. Let's say we're gonna read this article. Well, now what we need to do is we need to cite the article. So in order to cite an article from a database, you get out your trusty Writing Matters textbook and you look up in the MLA section. If you are using the correct edition, the edition assigned, the Lamar State College Orange section, second edition, you're going to look for an article that appears in a database. And you're going to look specifically for an article. In this case, this is an article that appears in Smithsonian, so that's a magazine, and it's accessed through a database. You're going to look on page 317, and you would put the author's name, Bruce Watson. Since this author comes after London alphabetically, you would put him before or after. If he came alphabetically before this author, you would need to put his name before. So Watson, and then we have his first name as Bruce, and then we need to put the title of the article in quotes because the smaller item always gets quotes. And what I'm going to do is something simple here. I'm going to go in and copy that and paste it regular so it matches. Put my quotes around it. Simplify my life. And then I'm going to go in and italicize because I'm doing the journal, Smithsonian. And then I am going to put, since this is a magazine, I would put February. 1998, and then I would put the database in italics. Actually, this one doesn't have the database in italics, so maybe they've changed that. Academic search complete, web, and then the access date, which is in this case, we'll just put that, 2016. And then, of course, I would change it to hanging indents. And now I would go through and I would cite specific quotes from this article. Now, that's a magazine. If you're dealing with, let's find an example of an academic article, an article in a journal. So this is, let's see here, biography, American Studies, and I'm just doing this to show you an example of a journal. So this is like an academic journal, missing links, and it's a PDF title. So it's not HTML, it's not retyped. So this is a scan of what it would look like in that journal itself. So let's say I decided I wanted to use this article, and I found multiple articles that I liked. You're not going to get extra credit for multiple articles, but remember, the articles that I'm requiring are minimums. You can add more if you need to, because you're going to have to write an essay dealing with this stuff. So Rachel, and I think it's L, and then the same thing's true with the article title, missing links, genre, evolution, and Jack London's Before Adam. Missing links, genre, evolution, and what does it say? Jack London's Before, which, if you don't know, is another short story by Jack London. And you may read other stories by these authors to help you illustrate or think about the work they're doing. Okay, so now I need to put the journal title, and this is Studies in American Naturalism. Studies in American Naturalism. And then for a journal, access to a scholarly journal, access to a database that appears on 316 in the correct edition. The next piece of information I need is the volume and issue numbers. So in this case, I don't have that information here, but I recall in the search that I actually had that information, volume 8, issue 1. So I would put 8.1, and then I would put the year of publication. So notice I have to look around a little bit. This was published in 2013, and that goes in parentheses. And then I would need to put the page numbers after a colon. So the page numbers are 6 through 20. And then I would need to put the search, the database again, academic. And this shows that as italicized. So I think it depends on the type of search, the type of journal you're having. And then this is the same, web, 19 February 2016. So you see, this is an article from an academic journal. This is an article from a newspaper or a magazine. Both of them found through a database. Either one's acceptable in this case, but depending on what you're dealing with, if you're dealing with a magazine, you have to cite it that way. If you're dealing with an article from a scholarly journal, you have to cite it the other way. Then, of course, you would plug in your quotes underneath that. Remember, there's a minimum of 3 quotes per source. So the submission for this one should have at least 2 citations. It should have the short story citation. You should revise your hypothesis, make it better, unless I said it was fine, and try to tie it closer to that literary lens. And then you need to have your article, which may be from either an academic journal, as this one is, or from a magazine, as this one is. I will attach this to my newsfeed post with this lecture, so you'll have it as a model. So I hope this video helps as you're moving forward to finishing this